please confirm this is a live stream, and I think this is going to be a good time. This is going to be a chill, casual bass hangout, Q&A. I think it's just going to be fun. So someone out there on the internet confirm that you can hear me and it's sounding okay, and then we'll jump in. In the meantime, tell me where you are in the world and tell me your daily driver bass. What's your primary bass you play the most? And I'll wait just a minute or two while people come in to the stream, and then we'll get started. But I'm so excited about today. And someone out there in the chat, please confirm you can hear and see me okay and it's working okay. And I see Designed by Shay just gave me confirmation. So we're good. All right, this is going to be fun. Yeah, let me know where you are. Where are you in the world? I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and my daily driver bass, I would probably say these days, is this JMJ Mustang, at least for playing live, just because it's comfortable for me, having dealt with a hand injury. But a close second would be the P bass up there. I got a 66 P bass. Those are my most used basses probably, although I've got a few in here. We could talk about those. Today is going to be a Q&A. So it's whatever you want to talk about in terms of sound and music and bass. And this time is our time. This time is your time. So let's just have fun and talk about whatever we want to. I'm reading the chat. We got somebody from the UK, 2 people in the UK, Kentucky, London. Man, I think it's majority UK folks right now, which I guess for y'all it's, what, midnight? I think it's 6 hours later. Here it's 6 p.m. or 1800 hours for those military time folks. Rochester, New York, Nevada. I love the Patize Juice Box. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Says the main bass is a Squire Classic Vibe 60s. That's a great bass. Those classic vibes are really, really good. Okay, 11 p.m. Not quite midnight. So I think this will probably go for like somewhere between an hour and a half, so you guys can still go to bed and get up for work tomorrow. If it's too late, it's always hard trying to find the perfect live stream time, because like for me it's evening, but the West Coast in the US it's like 3 p.m. and then in Europe it's like midnight. So it's like I feel like this is kind of like the compromise for everyone. Germany, what's up? Honduras, welcome. Denver, Colorado. My brother's out there in Colorado. It's a beautiful place. Pat is a juice box. Pat. Welcome, Pat. Montreal, Canada. Let's go. This is awesome. Welcome, everybody. I'm just so happy you're here. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and answer the first question, which is, do bass players even need an amp anymore? In the meantime, tell me where you're tuning in from and what your main bass is. I love that we can just have a bass hangout, and there's people all over the world, and we all have something in common, and that's what we love music and that we love bass. And anyone is welcome here in this stream and on my channel. Before I do that though, before I jump in, I'm reminding myself here, I need to make a couple quick announcements. One, I'm running a sale right now on my courses. So if you like my channel, you'll probably like my bass courses, pre-recorded courses. 4-String Fundamentals is like a 2.5 hour bass course where I teach you walk you through beginner through intermediate into advanced playing. That's 33% off. Shay my wife is in the chat, and she's gonna post the link to that. It's 33% off if you use the code BASSAMP, all caps. That is an important announcement. If I don't make that announcement, it's bad, because I'm trying to be more strategic with this YouTube channel. So that, and then on a more fun note, have some new merch, new t-shirt design. Check it out. Timing, taste, and tone. The 3 T's, something we talk about a lot on this channel. for bass players that love the fundamentals. This is a t-shirt for bass players that love timing, taste, and tone, the things that I think make you a wizard on the bass. So, of course, it's a, if you can see it, it's a crystal ball with a wizard looking at a crystal ball, and inside the crystal ball is timing, taste, and tone. And my wife designed it. She's amazing. She makes amazing merch. So I have to say those things because I just do. So if you want to support the channel, check out the courses on sale. Specifically, 4-String Fundamentals is on sale today, 33% off. And the merch. And no one has bought this shirt yet. No, you would be the first if you get one. Someone's saying my mic's a little low. Someone bring the gain up a hair. Check, 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 check. Testing 1, 2. Maybe that's a little better. Let me know if you can hear. And I'm catching up on the chat here. Valencia, Spain, welcome. Fender Ventera P bass. It's a great option. People are chiming in about their amps. American P bass and Hofner. There's some good taste here. Good taste in the chat. Some great basses. Musa asks, where did you get timing, taste, tone from? Been saying it for years. I don't know if I heard it from a specific place. I just started saying like, oh, these are the fundamental things that are really important to me. I think that's kind of a common musician lore thing. I've heard different musicians say that through the years. But those are some of the like fundamentals that are really important on this channel, and we talk about them a lot. So it felt appropriate to immortalize them with a shirt. Okay, so let me hit the first question, and throw your questions in the chat. We're going to talk about whatever you want to today. But the question, the video title, do bass players even need an amp anymore? This was submitted to me on my Instagram as a potential Q&A question. I thought it was a great question because here's the thing. The answer is maybe. There are more and more gigs that exist, or playing opportunities that exist in the world, that you don't actually need an amplifier for. A few examples being, there's a lot of like church gigs, mega church gigs, where you can just have a DI and go straight in, and actually you're not allowed to have an amp on stage. That's a very common thing. That's a big industry now, playing in churches. And that's, so there's professional bass players that only play in churches that do not have an amp and never can play an amp on stage. There are corporate bands that are self-contained where you're on in-ears, playing weddings, same thing. There's some major stage tours where everything's on in-ears and there's no amps on stage. That's a trend. It's more and more, I think in the last 5 years especially, you have a lot of opportunities that exist where you either don't need an amp or you can't have an amp, where you have a noiseless stage and everything is self-contained with either wedges or in-ear monitors. That is a trend. It's becoming more and more. And you can also practice at home with headphones. So do you need a bass amp anymore is the question. And I think it comes down to if you are, there are definitely gigs where you need a bass amp. The question is, do you do those gigs? And I think my take is I think every bass player should own an amp, because there are opportunities that you need an amp for. And there are certain musical contexts that aren't going to feel right or sound right unless you have an amp on stage. And I've done both. I've done the new school way and the old school way, and I think I'm old school at heart. I always like having an amp on stage. I like hearing and feeling the stage vibrate with the bass notes. I like moving air behind me. So I'm a big fan of having bass amps. I recognize you can't always have them, but I do think working pros, working bass players, if you're going to do a certain number of types of gig, you will run into a situation where you do need an amp. However, you don't always have to have one. Depends on your career trajectory as a bass player. What kind of gigs are you doing? What kind of gigs do you want to do? I think more and more you don't need them, but at certain gigs you always will. So I'm a big fan of amps. I'm gonna do a video soon. I think like a amp buying guide, like demystifying bass amps basically, because there's so many different ones that have different features, and kind of talking about that. So stay tuned for that video. And I'm gonna catch up on the chat here. So the short answer is maybe, and the Philip answer is yeah. You probably should have a bass amp, but there are some environments where you don't. I'm catching up on the chat here, and welcome everybody. Welcome everyone who's here. Throw your questions in the chat. I have a bunch of questions that I got from Instagram, but if you have a question live, I'll do my best to answer it. So I'm reading through the chat now. Yeah. If you're a recording bassist, a bass amp is super nice to have. If you're a touring bassist, depends. That's a good point. I do find that having an amp in the studio is definitely something you can bring to the table. I've got that old flip top. You can't see it because it's dark over there. You can kind of see it. But that's a 60s flip top, and I use it just for recording. And that is like an asset that I can bring to the table as a session bass player. That's a part of the thing. So... blisters on your plucking fingers, what's due? Well, you could play with a pick. I've definitely been there before where you need to gig and you need to play, but your right hand or your plucking hand has got blisters. Some people swear by super glue. That's kind of like an upright bass thing. I haven't actually done that. If anyone has done that, let us know. But I think that brings up a good point, which is the more you can practice with a pick, the better, because you can go back and forth between the two. But I'm sorry your fingers are hurting, Claudio. I hope you heal up well. All right, catching up on the chat here. And welcome, everybody. So glad everyone's here. Yep, somebody says, yeah, Numlet says I plug into the PA from my SGT DI and basically use my Rumble 100 as a wedge. Yeah, that's a good point. So honestly, a lot of the gigs that I do, my bass rig, for the most part, is just a stage monitor. What the people are hearing out front is probably coming from the PA. The PA is doing the real work of pushing those low frequencies at a loud volume. I usually try and keep my stage volume not crazy loud to where it doesn't cause problems for front of house, but to a level where it feels good for me and for the band. So usually most of the sound is the DI, is what the people out front are hearing. And that's why I'm a huge fan of DIs and having a good DI that you like. And that is really important because, I mean, also another example of like an ampless gig, like some radio stuff or broadcast stuff. Like I was over in Europe with a band, and we got a last minute radio date where we went into the radio station, and it was a noiseless environment. You couldn't have an amp in there, and I basically had to plug into a console. I could have just used my bass straight into a random mixing console with a 1/4 inch, but I had a really good preamp with me. So plugging into a preamp, and then that preamp going to the console, and that console going to broadcast. So having a small DI is a really great way to ensure that your sound is your sound in no matter what situation, even if you don't have an amp in the room or on stage. Also, you have a lot more control that way, where there's not as much bleed into the drum mics and things like that may or may not be important to the engineers that you're working with. It depends on the genre. A lot of times people will blend your amp sound and your DI sound together. A lot of times I'll use the amp for the sort of the vibe and the character, but the DI is like the retained low end clean sound, and you blend them together. That's a really successful method that I use as well. Okay, I'm catching up on the chat. I'm not the best multitasker, but I'm going to try for all of you. Let's see here. Why do so many bass players have mustaches? I think it has to do with supreme taste and style. I think that's short answer there. Let's see here. Somebody says, I took your advice and went solid state, and it's changed my life. Good move. Tubes from home. I think I love tube amps, and I love them live. It depends on the situation. It depends on the gig. It depends on the tour. I always honestly prefer the sound of tube amps, but the convenience of solid state is really great, and it's lightweight and it's versatile. So a lot of times I'll use basically a solid state amp and head as a sort of stage monitor, like I was saying, and then a tube in my signal chain to the direct box, to front of house through a direct box, and then, like I said, bringing like this tube amp, this flip top to the studio. So it just depends. Good questions coming in. And I'm catching up on the chat. Welcome everyone who is here. I'm so glad all of you are here. If you missed the beginning, let us know, where are you in the world, and where are you, what's your primary bass that you play? And also, if you missed earlier, 4-String Fundamentals, my bass course is on sale. It's 33% off today just for people here in the stream. There's a code, bass amp, all caps, will get you 33% off, and that directly supports the channel. And then also we have new merch. We have this awesome t-shirt that my wife designed. It's for bass players that love the fundamentals of timing, taste, and tone. We also have the pocket hats. So if you want to support the channel with some swag, we have that available as well. Links to all of that are in the description and also in the chat. Okay, Musa asks, feelings on tube preamp pedals. I think I'm a fan. I definitely am a fan. I think the Noble is really good. It's also incredibly expensive. I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but it's 3 times more than a lot of other options. Does it sound 3 times better? I don't think so. But it might. I mean, we did the blind shootout last year, and it scored really, really well. Consistently, people chose that. A lot of people chose that. So I do think that there is, like, the Noble specifically is amazing. It's also very expensive. Do keep in mind with tube DIs, tubes do fail over time. They're expendables. So you might be on a gig and your tubes might go out. So it's a reality that you might run into. So I've been really enjoying the Origin Effects Super Vintage recently. It's like a SVT in a box that does not have tubes. It's a great option. Also, their black panel is really good if you're into more of a bassman sound. The Capo is really cool. I have a bunch of friends that have the Capo. I don't personally own one, but I think it sounds awesome and has some really great routing options, really great tone. I don't think you need to have a tube DI or that they're inherently better. They're just, it's a different character. They do sound pretty awesome though. I've heard about the Sushi Box DIs. I've never tried one. Oh man. Soulstar says, my primary bass is a Jap 1979 Yamaha Pulsar 400. I bet that thing is sick. It's Stefan, I think I'm saying it right, is in Switzerland. Oh, okay. Stefan asks a really good question. I love flats, but they get sticky to play with so fast. Any tips to make them less sticky, or is that just a part of the game? You might be referring to like new flats, and I've found that using a scrub brush, like the kind of spongy thing that you'd use to wash dishes, it's like a thick foam that has a texture, we call them Scotch-Brite pads here in the U.S. I don't know if it'd be called the same thing, but it's like a green sponge. I'll take those. If I have new flats, sometimes I'll take something, or like light sandpaper or steel wool, that kind of thing, and just basically take off the coating. Sometimes I'll do that to avoid that stickiness, and that helps. I know a really popular method to break in flats is using Vaseline. I haven't done that personally. I have a secret method that I've been sworn to secrecy on not telling people by a bass mentor of mine. So I might have to ask permission to share the secret method to breaking in flats. But I have to honor my word to that person. But I can tell you, to public knowledge, the Vaseline trick is cool. That might help you. But it is a good point about you might not like the feeling of them. Another great option a lot of people don't talk about is the half rounds. Half rounds are a really great option, kind of halfway between rounds and flats. If you haven't tried those, you should. Kind of feel like flats, but have a little more zing to them like rounds. And I currently have them on my Mustang, and it's great. Hey, what's up, Mark? Welcome. I hope you're doing well, man. Okay, catching up on the chat here, and welcome, Dan. I see some familiar, friendly faces in the chat. If you are just tuning in, this is a live Q&A. This is our time to talk about what we want to. This is a positive, chill, casual bass hangout. So if you have questions or just want to talk about gear or technique or whatever it is, throw the questions out. I'll do my best to answer them. Or maybe if you're in the chat and you have a good answer, it's maybe better than mine or different than mine, please throw that in the chat as well. I want this to be about us all helping each other and learning together, because there's definitely a lot I have to learn. So catching up on the chat here. Sam asks, would you bring the pocket hat design to anything else? I'm not a hat wearer, but I really like the design. Great question, Sam. And to answer your question, we do have this as a t-shirt, and it looks sick. So if you like a t-shirt, we also have it as a poster. So if you like the pocket design, which I think is awesome, it visually represents the pocket because there's like a bar line and the music flows over it. And my wife designed that. I love that design. So if you're not a hat person, like Sam, we have it as a t-shirt and as a poster as well. And there's also the Timing, Taste, and Tone shirt, the new shirt. So check those out. And those directly support Shay and me and this channel. So throw your questions out. I might check a question from my Instagram. It's, let's see here. Ooh, Pringo says a 1998 Dan Electro Longhorn. Those are sick. Great bass option. Chat, here's a genuine question for you. How many of you are primarily playing flats versus rounds? That is an interesting thing. Mark says Vaseline works. Nice. Thank you, Mark. I know where you got that trick from. The great Sean Hurley, I think, is the first person I heard to talk about that. Throw your questions in the chat. I'll do my best to answer. All right, Willers Monk says, some of your content appeared in my feed recently, and you bring a perspective to learning bass that a lot of channels miss out on. Thanks for that. I have 3 basses and use an amp for practice. Thank you. That's very kind of you. I'm really trying to do that. I'm trying to make the videos that I would want to see, and hopefully you want to see. So I'm just glad you're here. Thank you for the mustache compliments. All right, somebody says rounds almost always. Old rounds. Yes, I'm a fan of old rounds. I think that round 1 strings are like wine. It's like you want to age them a little bit because they just sit in the mix so well, especially for rock music, post 70s rock music especially. Ooh, great question from CompuCorder64. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I have a question maybe you people could answer, which is, if using an amp for recording, what inexpensive mics do you like? I have a U67 type I like, and the SM7B and the Audix D4. Okay, that's a great question. So basically, bass amp mics. I have shot a video about this that I'm currently editing, so stay tuned for like a full video on this. I have a few mic videos in the pipeline. One of them is a blind shootout with vastly different cost of mics. So if you are talking about budget mics, I will say dynamic mics typically are way less expensive than condensers or ribbons. And if you go for premium premium dynamics, you can get great value. A few of my favorites being the SM7B, which is pretty similar to this one. I think my other one is in my actual Shure is in the basement. This is UA's version of it that I'm talking through. But that is a great bass cab mic. The RE20, the EV RE20, I love that one. It's my personal favorites. Those are like neck and neck. They're both around $400, I think. Dynamic microphones. A lot of people like the 421. I don't like that as much on bass, but do not underestimate an SM57, which is like one of the most popular guitar cab mics. Also very successful on bass, especially if you're blending it with a DI, because that 57 is a very mid-forward sound, which cuts in the mix pretty well. So if you're not as worried about the low end, the 57 is very successful to sit in the mix. I will say one of my least favorite mics, controversial here, is the Beta 52, the kick drum mic. A lot of people use that on bass, but I don't like it because it has like its own EQ profile that really changes the way the bass sounds to my ear. So those are some mic options. And hey, also, I'm a terrible multitasker. So if you asked a question earlier, ask it again, because I can't like scroll all the way up while we're on the stream to catch like older questions. So if I don't get your question, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because I probably didn't see it. So if you just type it again in the chat, and I'll do my best to get to it. Looks like we have some other 57 fans, which is great. RE20, yes, is awesome. Also awesome on the snare. A lot of people are agreeing with the mic recommendations. I will say too, something a little outside the box here. I've been messing around with ribbon mics recently on bass, and it's not always as common a choice. Oftentimes ribbons don't do as well with high SPL, so you have to be careful. But I think ribbons can be a really cool sound, and I might do a video on that soon, talking about ribbon mics on bass cabs. It's not a sound I'd use for everything, but they have like this natural vibey smoothness to them. A lot of them are figure 8 patterns, so you get the mic coming out, the polar pattern coming from both sides. It's a cool sound. So I think there's going to be a video on the way for that too, on the way soon. Musa says, Earthwork mics are insane, so flat, and have such good transient detail. Yes. Earthworks, I think, are some of the most transparent, accurate, surgical sort of mics. If you're looking for a vibe, I don't choose Earthworks, but if you're looking for accuracy, I do. But sometimes that microphone's response is a part of the mixing process. Choosing a mic that's going to do a certain thing to the EQ is a part of the creative decision. So I think it depends on what you're looking for. But the quality of Earthworks is very, very high. And I have used them before. I'll use them again. I haven't personally used the MD421. Or no, I have. I'm sorry. I absolutely have. I saw the MD. Yes. I actually just, in that blind shootout, I included the 421, if I remember correctly. I didn't like it as much as the RE20 or the SM7B. But they're all in the same food group of tones and price range. They're all like around $400 new, and they all have a similar sort of tone. But of those three, I preferred the RE20 and the SM7. But also, it kind of depends on the song, right? I had these in a specific song, but like I think choosing microphones is very much like choosing an EQ pattern. So it depends on the bass and the arrangement and the other things. I don't think it's going to be like, this one's always the best. I think choosing microphones is a part of the creative process. Usually engineers do that, but I think bass players should be aware of it, that it's a part of the process. It's a part of your sound and your tone. Okay. Jose says, can you tell the story when you almost burned Rhett's amp with a flashlight? That was not me. That was Chris. Sorry, Chris, if you're out there, but it wasn't me. I heard about that. That was not me. Okay, throw your questions out there. I also had a question from Instagram about synth bass and how to get started with synth bass. So if you want, I can address that question. I want to gauge it off the interest of this group of people in the chat now. So if you want me to talk about how to get started with like keyboard bass, I can talk about that. Let me know if you want to go there or somewhere else. This is our time. This is not my time. This is time for those of you who are here, and we'll talk about whatever we all want to. All right, catching up on the chat, and if I missed your question earlier, just throw it back out there. Steven asks, or Stefan, I'm sorry if I said it wrong. What headphones do you use for silent practice at home? I've got 421s on right now, Sennheisers. I really like HD25s. I use those. I also work in the film industry as a boom operator, and I use those all day, every day on set because they're really comfortable and they're a smaller profile. So those are really cool, and they have a nice bass response. So I definitely check those out. That's not something that most musicians choose, but they're awesome. HD25s by Sennheiser. I also have some open back Sennheisers. They're like the 600 series. Those are like mixing headphones, and those sound awesome too. I'm a big Sennheiser fan for headphones. Those are some of my favorites. Catching up on the chat here. It looks like people want synth bass. Mark asks, favorite YouTube video that excites you bass-wise? Clarify, Mark. I don't understand the question. Are you talking about somewhat like any video on YouTube, or are you talking about my channel specifically? All right, looks like the general consensus of the chat is synth bass. So I think we'll talk about synth bass. Well, okay, let's do it. We'll talk about synth bass for a minute. We don't have to do it like the whole time. Fancy that. I have a synth bass right here. How convenient. So this is my old Moog. This is a it's called a Moog Prodigy. It's a monophonic synthesizer. Hard to say that. Monophonic synthesizer. But the thing is, like, it can only play one note at a time. It's not like a piano where you can play a chord. It can only create one note at a time, which is great for bass, because usually bass players are playing one note at a time. Yes, to clarify, Thomas, we're talking about key bass, not synth pedals. I'm a big fan of actual keyboard bass, as opposed to just using like a fuzz and an octave, which is also really cool. But there's a different vocabulary and different nuance and different sounds you can get out of something like this. Monophonic synthesis is really cool. This is a vintage one. It's from the 70s, but you don't need a vintage synth to have a good synth. There's some really good modern alternatives. I like the Sub 37 by Moog. I'm a huge Moog fan. That's not cheap. There's a cheaper version called the Grandmother that's really cool. Makes some really cool. It's a little simpler, and it's very bass friendly. And then cheaper than that, there's the bass station by, I think it's called the Novation Bass Station. That was like $400 or $500. That's a really great, more affordable option. So I'm trying to decide how deep to go into this, but I would say if you're wanting to get into synth bass, you want to hear it. Maybe we should start with that. Let me plug this thing in. Stand by. Yeah, so you should be hearing a sine wave. I started doing this years ago, and I fell in love with it. There's so many different sounds you can get out of something like this. Really like analog synths because they just have this thick sound. But if you want to get into something like this, I would say you don't have to get a crazy expensive one, and really focus on, if you don't have a lot of keyboard experience, start with learning your major and minor triads in every key, and your pentatonics, major and minor pentatonics in every key. And then just start messing around, and then start listening to a great way. Something you're going to have to learn is how to build sounds, and maybe that's too much to talk about in this live stream, but put on some classic records. Put on like some Stevie Wonder or Michael Jackson, and try and build the sound from scratch. Probably using a sawtooth and or triangle wave in a low octave, and tweak your filter and try and build the sound from scratch. And then randomize all the knobs and then try and build it again. I used to do speed trials where I would randomize everything on this synth and then build a sound from scratch. It's a great way to practice building sounds, using your ear, referencing records to do it. And then the same way as learning bass, like just play along with songs, learn lines. I will say you don't need to have like crazy keyboard chops to be able to do this successfully. I think if you can get your fundamentals down, your major, minor, triads, and pentatonics. And then the other thing too, how it's different than maybe playing keyboards or piano, is like using both hands and playing percussively. Like playing punchy short notes, that drastic cutoff where there's no decay, or using like big notes that last forever. So much sustain. There's things that this can do that a bass doesn't do as well, I think. Camera's focused on the synth and not me. So I would say, yeah, if you want to start this, get an affordable monophonic synthesizer, practice your major and minor triads, and try and emulate tones from classic records. And then just like make yourself do it, like take it to a gig. I used to plug this into my amp alongside my electric bass, and I would go back and forth between songs and play part of the song on like the pre-chorus on the synth, and then play the chorus on the bass, or vice versa, and just incorporate it into your sound. So that's the short answer. We can talk more about that if you want, or if you have specific follow-up questions, but I don't want to sabotage the whole stream with synth stuff because it's kind of niche. I love it though. I love talking about it, and we can talk more. Maybe it needs its own video. Let me know if you want that video. Let me know what videos you want. I want to make the videos you want. I'm going to catch up on the stream here. The camera knows a vintage Moog when it hears it. That's really funny. Synth is really fun. And the other thing too is if you start playing this stuff, you'll start playing. Like, I'm learning piano right now. I'm not like a great pianist by any means, but like I really enjoy playing keys. And kind of my gateway to playing keyboards was through synthesis, through bass synth. And I think now that's like helping my ear. Like, I'm better at hearing chord voicings because I play piano. And now that's like informing my electric bass playing. So it's kind of this like circle of learning and knowledge, which I think is a positive thing. So I don't think you would regret jumping in. In my first synth bass gig, I had a $100 MIDI keyboard plugged into my laptop, and I used Logic Sounds, and I played in front of 5,000 people doing that. So it's like, I'm not saying that to brag about the amount of people, but I'm saying like, okay, like I didn't spend a lot of money and I did it in a real gig and it sounded cool. So you don't have to have a vintage Moog Prodigy to do it. You can go MIDI. You can be fine. All right, catching up on the chat here. Throw your questions out. Do you want more synth stuff, or do you want what are your questions? This is our time. This is your time. I wish I could talk and read at the same time, because I feel like by the time I read, you said it a few minutes ago. If I missed your question, say it again. I'm not intentionally ignoring you. Oh, this is a great comment. M. Owler says, I'm almost 60 and could finally afford a tube amp. It's just so fun. Not sure why you would want to play into a computer or solid state amp. That's a fair point. I prefer playing into a tube amp too. But I will say there are some really practical applications for a solid state lighter weight amp. The weight, the size, the fact that they are less likely to break or the tubes to go down on a gig. So there are definitely some practical applications to not having a tube amp. Even though tube amps are super fun and super cool, I get that too. But I do think it's legit to use a Class D amp depending on your situation. Dustin asks if I've heard about L1011. I have not. I'll check that out. David asks, does it have weighted keys? No, it's not. They're comfortable, but they're not weighted. And I find that helps for synth bass. It's like that really percussive thing where you don't have a lot of response time. Luxembourg, welcome. It does kind of sound like a P bass with flats. It can. Thomas says, yeah, I play through an amp because the places I play don't have big fancy PAs yet. I mean, that's a good point. Like, I used to play in a wedding band or a party band, like a top 40 band, and we'd play like twice a week. I did that for a few years. We were playing people's parties and weddings, and we would bring a PA, and the PA would just be for like the vocals and maybe the keyboards or the brass. We would have like a brass section, and like, let's say there's 500 people on the dance floor, and that would happen a lot, and we'd be and it would be a dance. You know, people are partying, and I would have to provide all of the bass for the dance, what people are dancing to, the drums and bass. So like, that's a situation where having a big powerful amp was part of the gig, like being able to move the dance floor. So there definitely are very legitimate professional environments where you need an amp to do your job. Not all of them, but there are a lot of them. So I'm with Thomas on that one. Somebody says turn off the autofocus. I think it's been resolved at this point, but if it's still bothering folks, I can do that. Throw your questions out. And in the meantime, friendly reminder, got the bass course on sale today. The primary bass course, 4-string fundamentals, is 33% off. Just for folks in this stream, there's a code, bass amp, all caps, will get you 33% off. And that basically gets you 2.5 hours of pre-recorded bass lessons with me where we talk about the fundamentals. So if you're a intermediate bass player, or even a beginner through intermediate and even into some advanced playing, I think that resource would be helpful for you. And that's on sale today. And also the merch. Check out the merch. We got the new t-shirt design, which I love, made by Design by Shay. And all of that directly supports the channel. Favorite venue I've played? That's a good question. Let me think about that for a second. I'm going to say two. One of them is a venue called the 40 Watt Club, which is a rock and roll club where I grew up in Athens, Georgia. And there's a lot of musical history there. That's where like REM and the B-52s got their start. And it's like a Athens rock venue. And that was really cool getting to play there. And it's where I grew up. It's about an hour and a half from Atlanta in Athens. But I'll tell a quick story. One of my favorite venues I've played, and I hesitate to call it a venue, but a musical setting. One of my bass friends, mentors, a bass player I respect a lot, he asked me to fill in for him on a gig, and I'm hesitant to call it a gig as well, out of respect. But here in Atlanta is where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was from. So my friend was the house bass player at Dr. King's church, and he asked me to fill in on bass for him at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia, which is a historic African-American church. It wasn't for a Sunday service. It was like for a Wednesday night prayer service. But still, I was really honored to be asked. I was nervous because there was no prep. There was no songs that were sent out. In that tradition, you just kind of go with the flow and play along. So to prepare for that gig, I listened to a bunch of really old Baptist recordings of like choirs and like African-American gospel Baptist music. Just practiced listening to get those chord changes under my hands. And then I put on my best suit and went to play at Dr. King's church. And that is one of the greatest honors of my musical career. So that's what I'm really thankful that I got to do. But there's been a bunch of other great things that have happened that I'm thankful to have been a part of. Those are the ones that come to mind. Oh, nice. Willer's Monk says, I live down towards Augusta, home of James Brown. Georgia has a lot of great music. James Brown is from Augusta. There's something special about Georgia, I think. By the way, I'm so thankful all of you are here, and this is how you're choosing to spend your time, is hanging out, being a part of this. Sam Nelson asked, what do you think about Mike Mills from REM? I think he's criminally underrated as a bassist. I agree. He's awesome. A lot of respect. REM is a great band. I didn't always like them, but I feel like in more recent years, despite growing up in Athens, but the more I hear them, the more I admire what they did. They're such a cool band. All right, catching up on the chat here. Throw your questions out. Do you want more info about synth bass? I have some questions from my Instagram that I screenshotted and didn't prepare, but I was just like, oh, any questions? Oh, somebody asked about the new gold foil. Check this out if you haven't seen it yet. Check out this bass. Here's the bass mod. We just installed this new gold foil on this semi-hollow bass. If you can see it there. It sounds pretty cool. You want to hear it? Sorry about the noise. It's gonna happen again. Watch your ears. There we go. Gonna gain this way down. All right, so we got 2 pickups on this bad boy. Yes, I call this bass the Snorlax. It really has had a great metamorphosis this past couple weeks because got a really good setup on it and did a lot of stuff to it besides just the pickup. But so there's 2 pickups. There's this Curtis Novak Dark Star Bisonic style pickup, and then there's this gold foil, and there's a switch that goes back and forth. So here's the neck pickup. Sounds like this. And then here's the new one. I need to gain it down because it's louder. Stand by, I'll do that again so you can hear the before and after. It's a loud pickup. So here's the neck. And then here's the bridge. I really like both. I wanted to make this bass a little more versatile. Those are 2 of my favorite pickup styles for hollow or semi-hollow basses. One of them being from the Guild Starfire, one of them being from the H22, the Harmony. So I basically kind of like made a bass that could do a semi-hollow bass that could capture 2 of my favorite semi-hollow tones. So that's been fun. Curtis Novak, no ad here, no sponsorship. I paid full price for these pickups. I really, really like his pickups. They sound great. So if you're looking for like a boutique upgrade for your basses, check his stuff out. It's really good. Someone asks if I have a Leatherman in my pocket at this time. Nope. I usually keep a pocket knife in my pocket, but I just changed right before the live stream, so I don't. But yeah, it's a reference to the versatility analogy in the most recent video. I do wish Harmony would bring the H22 back. That would be sick. Yeah, here I'll just play this bass for a second so you can hear it a little more. So here's the neck. Here's both. And then here's the and then let me throw the origin effects on, get us a little saturation. I can gain it down here a little bit. Ooh, those pops are killing my speakers. What kind of pops are you talking about? Am I peaking? Be more specific with your complaints. All right, let me bring it up here on the preamp. I really like this preamp. Speaking of direct boxes, there we go. Hear that saturation? I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's a helpful recording bass. And what's funny is, like, for every 10 songs I play on someone's record, I think maybe 2 of them are this bass, which is just a cheap bass that I modded. So it's a friendly reminder that you don't necessarily need a really bougie bass. Sometimes it's just the right sound, you know? That's a really good question. Have you ever used an effects loop in a bass amp if it has one? That's not something I typically do. I feel like that's more a guitar relevant thing, because I feel like it's most relevant when you're like using reverbs from the amp, but it's not something that I have found is necessary. But maybe the chat could chime in. Are there some of you out there that are using effects loops regularly with your pedals? That's a really interesting question. Oh, nice. Matt says bought a bunch of Caslitter pedals after your jellyfish video. Guy makes amazing stuff. He really does. Let me show you real quick. Here's the jellyfish. Really awesome fuzz pedal. Not the fuzziest fuzz, but a really nice character. I really like this. It's a small company. But if you're looking for a nice bass fuzz, check out the Caslitter Albatross. Here, you can see how to spell it there. Kasledder. It's a cool pedal. Really, really happy with that one. Okay, here's an interesting question. Valet LZ91 asks, I have a question. I've noticed that PJ are often missing from discussion. Is there something wrong with them? And your English is great. You're doing great. Okay, hot take. Let me know what you think, chat. But I don't really like PJs not because they're bad. They're superior in versatility because they can take two great basses and do both. But I do think I don't think they're as cool. I feel like they're kind of the musical equivalent of zip-off hiking pants. Where it's like, is it pants or is it shorts? It's kind of like a little bit dorky to me, where I'm like, you should choose. Are you going to play a jazz bass or a P bass? You're trying to do both, and I think you should commit to something. That's my hot take. You don't have to agree with me, but I don't. Now, I will say an exception. I really, really like the Yamaha PJs. They're technically not PJs because it's not the same brand, but I have played some really awesome Yamaha PJs that feel like their own thing. They don't feel like a Fender clone. And I think that they are cooler. So am I totally off grounds here? Did I just alienate all of my subscribers that have PJs? Humble apologies. But you asked, and I won't lie to you. Not a fan of the PJ. Somebody says PJs are ugly and boomer as hell. I'm not going to say that. Wow. Okay. Did I stir up a hornet's nest? What do you guys think about PJs? Okay, somebody says they like PJ short scales. I did a video about the Mustang, the big Mustang shootout. And I said this too about the Mustangs, where I was like, okay, you took a Mustang body and you put a P bass pickup in it and a jazz bass pickup in it. So you took three iconic designs and then just kind of threw them together. Yes, it's technically like a more versatile bass, but I'm like, what does it stand for? Like, I think like choose one. Choose a Mustang or a P bass or a jazz bass. That's my personal opinion. Somebody says PJs are great. I have a few of them. They're better if a pickup selector switch. See, that was my complaint with the Mustang, was like it had a switch. So sometimes if I want a jazz bass pickup, I want to blend it in, not be like all of one or both. Tomas asks, what do you think about the HX Stomp for bass? I just did a video about that. And I will go check that out. I don't think I'm going to say all of those things in this live stream just for time. But, okay, William says the same thing. yeah, the Yamaha BB line is awesome, but outside of those, it's not. Yeah, that's my take. Like, if I want a PJ, I would probably go Yamaha, but I don't think you'll catch me with a P bass with a jazz pickup in it on this channel anytime soon. Maybe, you know what? Maybe my mind will be changed, but yeah, I just feel like it's kind of like tacky. Doesn't mean it's not as good of an instrument, but it's I just don't think it's as cool. Maybe I'll make a video about that. Yeah, choose straight up jazz or straight up P. What's my favorite pocket knife? I'm gonna go Gerber, because if I spend more money than that, I will lose it. It's like the threshold of like, it works, the blade's fine, but it's not too expensive. Jim asked us if I've ever played a Rickenbacker. I've definitely played a lot. I've never owned one. I've never felt like I needed to own one. But I don't have enough experience to really chime in with a strong opinion. Okay. That's a good question. Compucorder 64. I'm saying it wrong. I apologize. Remind me of a question I had. Started bass on Squier Mustang and love it, but your Jam J sounds better. I wonder how I get the Squier sounding more Jam J. Anyone have Jam J pups for sale? I can chime in a little bit about that. I love the original pickups that come with the Jam J. There's Seymour Duncan. I don't know if you can buy the exact ones, but they're Seymour Duncans and they're great. I did do a video on the channel where I swapped out the Curtis Novak Fat pickups, and I like them. They're a little higher output. I don't want to say they're inherently better. Hey, let me fix my camera real quick. Sorry. I'm still with you. I'll be right back. My camera, I'm still with you. I just got to reboot the camera. I'll be back with you in just a few seconds. But while I'm fixing this, I'll say the Curtis Novak Fat pickups I think are really awesome. They're just they're a little higher output. I like they're really clear sounding. Huh. I'm here. I'm still here, folks. I'm just I'm having a tech problem with this camera. I think you can still hear my audio though, right? I'll be right back. Just trying to get this thing to power cycle. I think I need a new battery. I'll show you what this pickup looks like in just a second. I'm behind the camera troubleshooting right now. I think I'll be back in just a second here. Okay, I think I'm back. Let me know if you can hear me. Sorry about the tech problems here. But check out this pickup. If you can see it. It's this cream color. They make them in black and in white. These things sound sick. I'll let you hear it real quick. And this is with semi-round or half-round strings. little bit. It's like nice and punchy. It has like a nice attack without being overly harsh. I think it's cool. Huh. Well, I think my my camera might be done for the day, guys. I'm apologize. I there's something going wrong. I'm gonna troubleshoot it one more time. Stand by just a second. Okay, well, I think it's a sign to wrap it up. This has been really fun. I think I'm going to try and do this more consistently. I don't know if it'll be every week, but I really enjoyed doing this, and I miss doing this. So definitely subscribe if you haven't. Follow me on Instagram because I'll post that these events are coming up. And also, if I didn't get to your question today, then please bring it next time because I want to do this again. I love doing this. So a couple last things before I go. The course is on sale today. The course is on sale today. 4-string fundamentals is 33% off. Use the code BASEAMP, all caps, and that'll get you 33% off. And also check out the merch. All of it's designed by my wife, designed by Shay, who's awesome, and she's the best thing in my life. She's great. Those are ways you can directly support the channel. And my camera is shutting down again. So I'm going to respectfully salute you all from the dark and say thank you for being here. And I'll be back soon. So thanks for your support on this channel. Thanks for being a part of it. I could not do this without you. And I really, really enjoy these live streams. So we'll be back soon.